Pressbox Radio, Philly Pressbox, and Jim, Chet, Chesto.
It's Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. Welcome to the Philly Pressbox Radio Roundtable, brought to you by the Irish Rover Station House in Langhorne, PA, and Allstate Insurance in Westchester, PA. I'm Bill Furman. I'll be your host tonight, along with my partner again, Jim, Chet, Chesko. And hey, Chet, what a time of the year. Philly season is underway. The Sixers playoffs start this week. Flyer season's still going on for people that care to watch that. And the Eagles and the NFL draft are right on the doorstep. Pick any team you want to talk about, and there's the discussion to be had.
Well, it won't be the Flyers that I'm going to pick to talk about. I'll tell you that. They've already packed it in for the season, I think. I know they're still playing games, but nobody cares, Bill. As for the Phillies, we're still waiting for the Bats to get going in earnest. After a 2-0 start, they suddenly lost 4 of the last 5. The Eagles, hey, I'm all ears about them with the draft coming up. And, yeah, we got some 76ers playoff action coming your way soon, Bill.
All kinds of stuff to talk about. And we got a couple great guests tonight to cover it. The former Inquirer Phillies and Eagles reporter Bob Brookover will join us. And in the second half, Inquirer.com Sixers beat writer KEITH POMPEY makes his return visit. Plenty to talk about, a couple experts to cover it. And Chet, I just got to throw in there now because I'm going to throw it in again. It's always good to talk to KEITH because we get to talk about how bad the Giants are.
Yeah, that is true. Can't wait to see Mr. Pompey later on. Lots to talk about with both of these guys, Bill. And, we got our guests ready to go, so let's get going.
Let's go ahead. Let's welcome Bob Brookover back to Philly Pressbox Radio. Bob, welcome back. How's retirement?
Well, I'm trying to unretire, and that's not going so well. But not working. I'm getting very good at it.
Well, you're welcome to join us anytime, but the pay sucks. We don't pay, so sorry about that.
Well, that's always
Bob,
a problem.
Yeah, Bob, I got to ask you. We were all excited about this Phillies team this season, and they're not hitting the home runs and driving home the runs that we thought they would. They're 3-3 and not looking all that good. What's your impression of this team so far?
Well, I think a 6-game sample is just way too small to determine anything right now. As you said, the advertisement is that they're going to hit, and I think they are going to hit. Bryce Harper's not going to. He finally had a home run today. He's not going to hit 100 something. Kyle Schwarber's not going to hit 100 something. I don't think seems like he hasn't got a hit since that leadoff home run. Isn't true, but he's really struggled. They are going to hit, but they also have holes. They just had lost 2 out of 3 to the Mets, and it sure looks like even with Jacob deGrom not in the picture right now, that the Mets have a better pitching staff than they do.
Yeah,
and guys that we maybe didn't expect so much. McGill, really pitched a great game the other day and has pitched well. They made a great acquisition from the A's right before the end of spring training. They've got depth in their rotation, and I don't think it's changed. I don't care how much hitting you got. It's still all about the arms over the 162 game season.
Absolutely. At what point in the season, we've only 2 games in, we don't want to rush to judgment, but at which point are we getting concerned about Aaron Nola and the home run ball?
It was a problem, obviously, last year for him. It seems like he's going along great so many times, and he's in a groove, and then he gives up a home run ball. And in fairness to him, I thought I didn't get to watch the entire game, but the bits and pieces I was watching early, Adrian Johnson's strike zone was just horrible. And that can take a guy out of a game too. It shouldn't take somebody like Aaron Nola out of his game. But Aaron Nola is all about command and throwing 3 or 4 different pitches for strikes. If he can't be that guy and he leaves the ball over the middle of the plate, he's susceptible to the home run ball. And if he's susceptible to a home run ball again this year, I mean, he could be looking at a second straight year like the one he had a year ago. And the Phillies cannot afford to have him be the Aaron Nola of 2021. They didn't be the guy they saw in 2019.
Yeah, it's concerning because he's doing the same thing that we've seen the last couple of years. He'll get 2 strikes on a lot of the hitter, but can't put them away. And before you know it, he's given up 1 or sometimes 2 homers every game. He's been a 500 pitcher the last couple of years, and they need him to be better than that. On the other hand, Zach Wheeler.
I thought he was very good on opening day, but until he gave up the late the 3-run homer. But I thought he had been very good up until that point. He's something to watch. He's a really important piece of this whole thing.
Meanwhile, Zach Wheeler didn't face a batter at all in spring training, didn't get the opportunity. It was a shortened spring training. He had some shoulder stiffness. He was a little under the weather. He came out of the chute with a rough first inning, but he got out of it and then looked really, really good. Just gave up that 1 home run ball. So is Zach Wheeler, do you think, going to have another good season?
I think he should. I mean, from a stuff standpoint, he's arrived. I mean, he's what we saw last season. I know Aaron Nola was, I think, 3rd in Cy Young voting in 19. But Aaron is a very good and smart pitcher and has been good in Philadelphia for a while. But Zach Wheeler is a different kind of animal. He's more in line. I'm not going to say he's Jacob deGrom, but he's more deGrom and Scherzer-like than Aaron Nola is. And he's got the stuff to dominate when he's on.
Hey, Bob, the bullpen has a whole bunch of different names. I don't know if they're going to be better names or not, but it seems to me if the hitting comes around like we think it's going to, they're never going to be out of a game. You can't give up 6 runs in the bullpen like you did today. That gives you no chance.
Yeah, Connor Brogdon's a guy that was so good last year, and it's the old bullpen thing. These guys can be really good one year and not really good the next year. But they do have veteran guys, Familia, Brad Hand, Knebel. That's 3 guys right there that are veteran guys. You had to love the way when Hand came in, Phillies take a 5-4 lead on Monday night, and Hand comes in and good morning, good afternoon, good night. Three batters, 3 outs. I do like that. I do like a lot that he's a left-handed arm out of that pen and gives Joe Girardi some options to, not necessarily to have one closer, and maybe he's still going to, but I just think with that left-handed arm, there's going to be some nights where, hey, and a left-handed arm who's been a closer that they're going to say, hey, Brad Hand, you're my guy today. I'm not going to worry about getting the ball to Corey Knebel. I'm going to let you have it, or and those are 3 guys that have all closed. Just on paper, the bullpen to me looks like it's going to be improved, and if it has to be, or Aaron, you think Aaron Nola is a problem. If the bullpen is 2020 or 2021 bad, the streak is going to be 11 seasons.
Yeah, I like what I saw from Knebel in the opening day win, and Brad Hand, as you mentioned, looked great the other night. And I know Sir Anthony Dominguez gave up a run today, but he's looked really good. He's been a really pleasant surprise. Is he going to be a guy, hopefully, if he stays healthy, that can be that 7th, 8th inning guy almost, 4 or 5 times a week?
Yeah, I mean, there were times before he got hurt that he looked like he was going to be the closer at some point. Mm-hmm. When he was on a few years ago. For the injury, that was electric stuff. Again, that's an arm. If he can be anywhere close to where he was in, I guess it was 2019, if he can be anywhere close to that, now you're talking about the makeup of a pretty good bullpen. Still some questions about the rotation, but the makeup of a pretty good bullpen for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bob, before we get to the infield, because I think we're certainly going to talk about that, but I want to ask you as a baseball guy, what happened today with the Dodgers where Dave Roberts pulls Clayton Kershaw with a 7-inning perfect game, 13 strikeouts and 80 pitches. As a baseball guy, a baseball fan and all that, What do you make of that, regardless of it's week 2 of the season?
I hate it. I mean, I just hate it.
Me too.
It's 80 pitches, and I could see if it was 110 pitches here in this odd spring training that they had, the abbreviated spring training. But 80 pitches, you gotta let the guy try to get a perfect game. There's so many things I still don't like. One of the things in the Phillies' first 6 games I've noticed is that we got all these things put in the game to speed the game up, and they don't seem to be working. Today's was a perfect example, but
4 hours.
Even last night, the 2-0 game. It took 3 hours and 17 minutes to play a 2-0 game. That bothers me even more than a 9-6, however game long this game was today. I didn't even look what the time was. I know it was long, but they keep trying to do these things and none of it works. Now we're about to see a bunch of different things. But yeah, an old school baseball guy would have never done that. I can remember, and this isn't exactly related, but when I'm drawing a blank here, who's the Steven Strasburg, when he was a rookie and they were taking him out of the rotation because he had thrown so many innings and they were going to the playoffs and he wasn't going to pitch in the playoffs. Yeah. And I went to Roy Halladay's locker and I said, Roy, what would you have done if they tried to do that to you? He said, they wouldn't.
Right.
Just made it clear, this is not how the game is supposed to be played in mind of Roy Halladay. And, that's not that old school. We're only going back 12 years there. But you go back 20, 30 years, and those guys just got to be, their stomachs got to be turning.
Yeah. Well, Bill mentioned the infield. Rhys Hoskins, off to a pretty good start this year. Segura as well. He got banged up a little bit today, got hit on the wrist or forearm, but apparently it's nothing too serious. He's day to day. But the big question is third base. We've seen Alec Bohm. We've seen Stott. We've seen the other guy, Market, today. How do you see that playing out? And what are they going to do with Bohm, who looks like he's doing a lot better as far as the at-bats this year, but still a real butcher in the field?
Yeah, I mean, offensively, they've got a terrific infield, I think, a ton of depth. Even Camargo, I mean, I really like Camargo as a bench player because he can play all over and he can play them all well defensively. And he's a potential offensive bat too, if he can revert to the form he had a few years ago with the Braves. But you have a lot of bats. I mean, I think Bryson Stott's going to be a hitter. As bad as Didi's season was last year, he's still got a lot of pop, and he's capable of hitting 25 homers. But you got to be able to catch the ball. Stott had his problems over there at third base too. They need somebody over there. I think Camargo can do it, but I don't know. I don't think that's the guy they want to be doing it. They want Alec Bohm to be the guy. I know they've, this is just from reading because I wasn't down there, but I know they spent a ton of time working with Bohm at third base. And they, he does have a bat. He does have a big league bat. I really believe that last year offensively was an anomaly for him, and that he's going to be a big league hitter. But they only put in one DH, and they didn't put in 3 or 4. Phillies could use 3 or 4. That would be a heck of a lineup. You could have 11 hitters and 3 or 4 DHs, but they don't. And they need somebody to play third base. I will say this about Alec. He had a really tough situation there after he was caught on camera muttering those words. And he handled it very well.
He did.
Extremely well. And then in turn, the fans also last night handled it very well. That was good to see both of those things, that it didn't turn into something even bigger.
I don't know what surprised me more, his response to owning it so quick, or the Phillies fans' response to accepting it so quick. I didn't expect that from the fans, to be honest.
Well, I think they just appreciated his honesty, and because he did handle it that way. He said, "Yeah, I said it." I think if he had tried to deny it or handle it a different way, but I think because he handled it so professionally, it really helped him get past it very quickly.
So what's your prediction for this season, Bob? 3-3 is very small sample size, of course, but they're going on the road now for the next 7 games. It's a long season. Are they a playoff contender, do you think?
They're definitely a contender. I think there's no doubt that they're a contender. I think this is the best team that Joe Girardi has had as manager. It's the best team on paper they've had in a long time. The popular pick I know before the season was the Braves to win the division again, saying I think the Mets or the Phillies are going to win a division. I think the Braves letting Freddie Freeman go was a huge mistake. I don't think you can underestimate what Freddie Freeman means to a team, not just when he goes to home plate, which obviously is a ton. He was an MVP a couple years ago, great player, but I don't think you can underestimate. Freddie Freeman was the Braves franchise for the last 5-6 years. And
exactly what I said, Bob. And I picked
how
the Phillies
many
in the
years in
Mets
a row
as
did they
well.
win the division? I know they won only one World Series. Yeah, I agree completely, Bill. They won only one World Series, but in order to win the World Series, you got to be in the postseason. And the Braves were consistently in the postseason with Freddie Freeman, the face of their franchise. And he wasn't just giving them professional bats; he was giving them a professional atmosphere in the clubhouse every night.
Absolutely. Well, Bob, do we have a minute to talk Eagles with you?
Sure. I don't know how much I can.
Well, we got some draft picks. We got some draft picks coming up. A couple in the first round. Have you been following enough to have your eyes on maybe not necessarily a player, but a position you think this team needs to go to get to the next level?
I would like to see them draft defensively. I would like them to improve their defense. I think that should be their focus. I think they're a pretty explosive offensive team right now. They've obviously decided that Jalen Hurts is their guy at quarterback. But I didn't mind that they kept Fletcher Cox, but I didn't think my reaction to Fletcher Cox staying wasn't, oh, geez, they got this great guy still. I think they need to get younger on defense, and they need to get edge rushers. I know Brandon Graham was a big loss last year, but at some point you got to say, okay, it's kind of like Jason Peters at left tackle. He can't play left tackle forever. At some point you got to let it go, and they did, and that worked out just fine. At some point you got to start looking at the defensive side of the ball, especially on that defensive line, and say, hey, let's get younger. Love to see him draft a linebacker, but I've been saying that since Jerry Robinson in 1978, I think. And maybe I'm dating myself a little there.
We know.
Hey, Bob, before we let you go, somebody wants to say hi to you. We got some guy in the waiting room who wants to say hello to you.
Yo, what's up, Bob? How you been, man?
Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm sitting back here listening to you drop knowledge, man. I miss working with you.
Well, you're killing it on the Sixers beat, my friend.
Hey, Bob, tell Keith that the Giants suck, in case he forgot.
hey, you saw I get a rant?
He's a very knowledgeable sports fan.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys who are, because I'm a Giants fan.
We know.
Yeah, and they know. And I'm the biggest trash talking Giants fan. That's loud,
true too.
Yeah.
Well, here's the good news about the Giants, Keith. The Giants don't ever disappoint you like the Cowboys do, because you just know going in they're not going to be any good.
Exactly.
Break your heart.
Exactly. It's kind of like it's trust the process to be continued. You know what I mean?
You can't always pull out the 4-1 Super Bowl advantage, though. You can always,
but it's getting kind of outdated. Like, weren't you in elementary school?
It is, but there's still Super Bowls.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Bob. The last time we had Keith on, he even pulled the Pitt card out. He started talking about the Panthers.
Oh, the Pitt Panthers.
Yeah, that's who the Eagles should draft. The quarterback.
Yeah. You never know.
You want the quarterback?
I hope not.
Nah, I hope not. But not for y'all. But
well, I'm a Michigan State fan. That didn't work out so well for Pitt in the bowl game.
Nah, it didn't. Not at all.
Sorry, Keith. That wasn't a setup.
Yes, it was. I
didn't know. I honestly didn't know Bob was a Michigan State guy. I'm sorry about that.
Hey, Bob, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, great to see you, Keith. Great to see you guys. Take care.
All right, Bob.
Great to see you, Bob.
Thanks.
Take care.
Well, Keith, good to see you, my man. We're just going to go ahead and introduce you. Inquirer Sixers beat writer Keith Pompey is back, and we're glad to have you. Whoops.
Oh, we lost him. There we go. Hey, Keith.
When you said back, you meant literal. Let's send him back.
You ready, Bill? Should we talk hoops
right
away? What the heck?
Let's go.
All right. The first thing we got to talk about is the MVP situation. Joel Embiid's had an amazing season, but by most accounts, he's not going to get the hardware. This is something we saw online today. Looks like a lot of votes for Jokic, a few for Giannis, and not too many for Joel Embiid. What's going on there, Keith?
Yeah, did you see my name on there?
I did not.
Oh, you did not. Yeah.
No, those were guys that have already gone public, supposedly with an article or something about who they picked.
Okay.
And someone made a chart up of it. Yeah.
Yeah. My thing is I voted for Embiid, and let me stress this by saying this is the first time that I voted for Joel. In years past, I felt like he had pretty good seasons, but due to injuries and other things, I felt like he wasn't deserving. This year you look at the 76ers and the award is the most valuable player, not the player with the best statistics, but the most valuable player. And if you take Joel Embiid off the 76ers, and I'm sorry if I'm going to offend some Sixers fans, but if Joel Embiid wasn't on the Sixers team, this team would be playing in the play-in game right now. They would actually be playing in the play-in game. I mean, there are times if we want to talk about statistics, I mean, think about it. They played a team, Charlotte, the Charlotte Hornets, twice down in Charlotte, a 2-game homestand. Joel Embiid had like 40 and 10, 39 and like 20, stuff like that, just for the 76ers to beat that team. And this is, we're talking about a team that was undermanned. He had to do that against an undermanned team. And this has been the storyline all season. So for me, seeing this, and I understand that, Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo have come on and played phenomenally down the stretch. I think this is an award that goes over 82 games. And from the start to the finish, Joel Embiid, in my opinion, has been the most valuable player.
No argument here.
Well, and I guess my question about this, Keith, is if you look at the stats, they are basically pretty much the same across all three guys. But I always look at the next step is who won? How many wins did they get? And Embiid and Giannis both have exactly the same records. Their teams do. Denver is in 6th place. They lost just a few more games, but that's how close this thing is. I mean, to me, Jokic would be the third, using my thinking, and then you could split a hair between the other two. Probably take Joel because he's our guy, but I wouldn't have a problem with a Milwaukee guy taking Giannis either, because they're pretty much dead on.
Yeah, and you're right, they are pretty much dead on. But again, like when I look at Giannis's team, and I get it, believe me, I get it. But they have Chris Middleton, who's a bona fide second All-Star. They have Drew Holiday. We all know Drew Holiday from playing with the 76ers. He has been the X factor for that team. You also have a guy, and I know Brook Lopez was injured for most of the season, but he came back, and then you have, Bobby Portis coming off the bench. All 4 of those guys will be welcome addition, or 3 of those, 4 of those guys will be welcome additions on the 76ers. So I get it. I know Giannis is the best player on that team. He's the type of guy that's always going to be in the MVP category, like LeBron James or Michael Jordan. you can always make a case for that person winning it. But, we're talking about, for much of the season, the 76ers' second best guy was Tyrese Maxey, a second-year player. Now, granted, he's been playing phenomenal basketball, but he's a second-year player that a year ago struggled to get in the rotation. So, so when you look at it, we're splitting hairs, but I feel like on this particular season, Joel Embiid, for all the stuff he had to do, he is the most valuable player. And here's what, if we're going to throw out stats, he's the first center since Shaquille O'Neal to win a scoring title. He's also the first center since the great Moses Malone to average over 30 points. He's the first center since Bob McAdoo in the 70s to win a scoring title, averaging over 30 points. So, we're talking about, this guy breaking records. He's doing stuff. And the 76ers haven't had a big man put up stats the way he has since Wilt Chamberlain, who's, the greatest player to ever play the sport. So when you factor all that stuff in, everybody's going to throw up stats and everything. But we're talking about the stuff that Joel Embiid is doing is comparable to Hall of Famers when they were in their prime. So that's why he should be the MVP.
Yep, I was going to go over all those stats. Thanks for covering it for me, Keith. I appreciate that. All right, let's get to the playoffs. Let's get to the postseason, man. It all starts this Saturday. Sixers hosting Toronto. Game 1 Saturday, Game 2 on Monday. How do you like this series? A lot of people think it's got to be easy for the Sixers, but I'm not so sure. Toronto's a pretty good team.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we get overly optimistic because we want our people want their team to do well. But when you look at this Toronto team, we're making a big deal out of Matisse Thybulle not playing, right? Well, the last two games, at least, on the road. The last two games that the 76ers played Toronto, Toronto didn't have their all-star Fred VanVleet, nor did they have their best perimeter defender and OG Obanobi. I just messed the man's name up, and I apologize. I apologize. But so, he's in a quality 3-and-D. But the only game that got me is that they won was the game where they won up, and the Sixers went to Toronto, and Toronto was playing without 6 players due to COVID. Right. And the Sixers barely won that game. Tobias Harris had to have a 30-point triple-double, and Joel Embiid had to, dominate. So to me, everyone says this is going to be easy. I feel like outside of the Brooklyn Nets, this is the toughest matchup for the Sixers. It just is.
Well, Keith, I think I mention this to you every time we talk, and I say this every time we talk about Sixers, and it's chemistry or lack of chemistry, or do they play enough time together? We've added James Harden here down the stretch. We saw a lot of up and down from Harden, I guess you would call it. Have they played enough together to put this thing together and make a deep run?
That's the number one question. Initially I would say no. The key part is I hate the play-in games. I really do. I hate the play-in games. But for the 76ers, this works out perfectly because they're having a training camp, so to speak, where they're getting these practices in, they're getting these reps. The Sixers rarely practice on a regular season, but this time they're getting James Harden, trying to get them more acclimated. They're trying to work on their spacing. They're trying to do other things. So, we'll see. But, I don't know if when you look at this team, I see, right now you have James Harden, you have Tobias, you have Tyrese Maxey, you have Joel. And to me, Maxey and Tobias has to be a little bit more consistent. And you can say the same about James Harden, right? So when you look at that, I just think that they're going to have a tough time coming out of the East or even getting to the Eastern Conference Finals because they're not deep enough. And the players who they really need to depend on have been extremely inconsistent. And I just don't think that they'll win it this year.
So James Harden's not the 30, 35 point a game guy that he used to be. Does he still have enough left in the tank? And how is the hamstring? Is he healed yet, or is that still an issue for him?
Well, initially Doc Rivers said it was going to take about 3 weeks. And then, 3 weeks was last week. And he said the hamstring isn't bothering him again. Now, I think that at this particular time, if we think that, like you said, he's not that same James Harden, I don't expect that same James Harden to come back. I think that James Harden is at his best now as being a facilitator, and then hopefully for the Sixers being able to knock down a couple threes a game, right? But be a facilitator, have better command of the ball. I don't feel like that with the way this team is constructed, and also that he's getting a little bit older, his shot has been inconsistent. I don't think that type of player that he was in Houston will get them out of the first round. I think, but when we go back to his play early on, when he was the facilitator, getting everybody else involved, that's when the Sixers were at their best. But the other stuff that I saw, I know they keep saying the hamstring is better, but he just doesn't have any lift. A lot of times when he drives the lane, it looks like he's trying to draw fouls, and when he doesn't get it, he's grabbing the arm. It just seems like he's getting trying to look for a lot of bailout plays because he can't make the same plays that he used to years ago.
Well, I think you might have answered my next question, but I'm going to lay it out to you anyway and see if we got it. Do the Sixers need a game every night from Joel where he's got 38 and 15 and Harden gets 12 and 14 assists? Or do they need to be able to have Joel at 28, James at 22, Maxey at 22, and that kind of scoring to be able to win?
I think the latter. The thing is, Joel can go do that, but if I think, like, especially Maxey, if we see Maxey up in the 20s and we see James, I don't know if James have to score 20. I mean, maybe that it would be nice, but I think that the Sixers, if the ball is moving, that means if Maxey and them are knocking down threes and doing things like that, I think that they will be successful. I think, like, the best thing for the 76ers, the ingredient to win, is if we go to that Indiana game where they hit 23 threes. Now, I'm not saying they need to hit 23 threes, but it was one of those things where they had so much balance that opened up a lot of things. I feel like if Joel Embiid gets 30 or 40, that's great for him. But at the same time, it's not going to help you if Tobias Harris has 5 points and Tyrese has 11. So, I think it's more of the latter.
Now, Keith, it's only an issue 8 to 10 minutes a game, but the backup center situation, you got Paul Reed, you got DeAndre Jordan, and Doc Rivers doesn't really like to answer that question. What do you think they should do in terms of the backup center for this first series? And as a side note to that, what do you think of Doc Rivers, the way he handles questions about that? He kind of berates reporters for asking, saying, like, I know more than you guys.
Yeah, let me get the first quote part of it first. The thing is, I think, like, it's a tough situation because, you look at Jordan and he's a negative, he's a minus when he gets on the floor.
Always.
It's weird. It's like a lot of times we talk about them blowing leads. Well, they typically start blowing the leads when Embiid goes out of the game. You know what I mean? When Jordan's on the floor. So it's going to be kind of rough. And I think that, unfortunately for the Sixers and unfortunately for Joel Embiid, right now, and I mean this politely, I just don't have faith in anybody else to hold a lead. You look at Paul Reed, he's an athletic guy, but he's a foul waiting to happen right now.
Yes.
And he's undersized too. So what is he going to do against like a Brook Lopez type guy, right? That's the problem. But, and so I feel like it's going to be one of those things, I hate to say it, where we're going to see Embiid and he's going to go to the bench, and then next thing he's going to get like he'll go to the bench right before like a TV timeout or something like that, and then all of a sudden he'll come back, because he'll be able to rest on the timeout. I think that they're going to have to increase his minutes, knowing wholeheartedly that if he plays the same amount of minutes that he's playing now against a quality team, that all they're doing is just setting up for blow leads. So to answer your question, I think that, we're going to see less of Reed. We're going to see less of Jordan, and we'll probably see more of Joel. The second part, with Doc, is, to me, it's a tough thing because I do get to berate things, and let's face it, I believe I was the first person who got into it with him, so to speak.
Yeah,
he lashed out at, right. But it's weird. I like Doc Rivers. I like him a lot, actually. But I feel like that, and I was telling somebody this earlier today, I feel like this has been like a stressful situation for him. It's been a stressful situation for the team. And it's kind of sort of like, you guys played sports. You know how, like, after the game, someone asks your coach a question, or even before a game, if it's a tight one, they kind of snap out at people. And maybe you can do it a little bit better than what you're doing. But I feel like that's what's going on. Is it a good look? No. But at the same time, when I see stuff like that, is letting me know that, okay, this was supposed to be the year. Like last year, they lost in the second round. They all kept saying, "Oh, we'll get it back. We'll get it together. We'll get it together." And you look at this team, and this team has taken a step back, actually, from last year's team. The only difference is Joel Embiid is playing at an MVP type level. So when I see Doc Rivers doing this stuff, it's, to me, like, it's frustration, and that's what it is. And, unfortunately nowadays, everything gets recorded and it happens. And sometimes you could do it a little bit less abrasive, less seeming like you're attacking. But I think a lot of it has to do with the frustration mounting. Because let's face it, they're not going to say it's Joel's fault. They may not say it's James Harden's fault. They're going to say, hey, you're paying this coach $8 million a year, and he can't get us out of the first round. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
And with all that said, back onto the court with Doc Rivers, does he have the skills to? I mean, he's got an all-time record that's fantastic in the top bunch, but can he take this team to the finals and win the finals? I still question that player rotation, and as you mentioned, the bench is weak to begin with, and that rotation is going to shrink more as you get deeper in the playoffs. Does he have the wherewithal to make that happen?
Yeah, it's going to be tough for him because, like, the part of the thing is, when you looked at Doc Rivers in the past, he had a lot of veteran teams, right? He had like veteran players. This one is like young, and the problem is maybe that's part of the frustration. Like, you look at a guy like, and I don't think he can do it, but partly is the bench. Like, you look at a guy like a Shake Milton, he's a scorer. He's not exactly known as a shooter. He can knock down shots, but he's a scorer, but he can't play defense. Furkan can shoot, but he can't play defense. Like, even when Matisse plays, like if Matisse plays, he can defend, but he can't shoot. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're at a huge deficiency with everything. And you look at the roster, George Niang became a really reliable player, but he was a guy who couldn't get minutes on the other teams that he was on. So, like, I think that it's going to be tough for Doc. And like you said, he does have that record and everybody's judging him by that. But I also think that, I hate to say this, I think it would be tough for Phil Jackson too right about now with this roster, So, but again, you asked a valid question. And if they do go out, a lot of people are going to look at his record. They're going to look at him and they're going to say, hey, what happened? You're supposed to be Doc Rivers. But I do think that this roster has a lot of holes.
Keith, last question from me. Who wins the Celtics-Nets series, and will we actually see Ben Simmons on the court at any point?
Let me answer the second question first. I mean, the way Ben Simmons, like, you know how he does like an emoji where like the mean face? Well, he did that, and like Twitter went crazy today because he did it at practice. So, I mean, you know, who knows? Like, the thing is, I honestly think that Brooklyn is a dangerous team. But if there was one team that I felt like that could beat them and match them, I felt like it's the Boston Celtics. You know, just because their players aren't as good as the big two, but at the same time, I feel like the Brooklyn doesn't have anyone who can defend them. And I also feel like Al Horford, being a crafty veteran, I know he struggled here, but he seems like he's playing at a high level where he is now. So, and then Ime, see, don't discount Ime Udoka. He was assistant coach here. He became an assistant coach in Brooklyn. Now he's the Boston Celtics head coach. So he knows exactly what KD likes, what Kyrie likes. So I honestly think that Brooklyn had a great year, or a great turnaround to get back in the play-in, and they're a dangerous team. But I feel like that Boston is more their kryptonite than any other team in the East.
Nice.
One final question from me, Keith. Who are your New York Football Giants going to take in the first round this year?
Man,
they need help. They got holes.
Surprised if they just traded their pick. got a veteran lineman. You know what? Like I don't know. I haven't really been paying attention. You know, but you know what's going to happen once the week one starts. That's when I'm gonna come out of hiding. I'm gonna have my Giants mug. I'm gonna say the Eagles are trash. But right now I'm just quiet. I'm quiet.
Gotcha.
All right, Keith. Well, hey, we appreciate you stopping by again, and as always, let's do it again. And good luck in the playoffs.
Thanks, man. I hope it's not a quick one. But
absolutely.
I think it might be. Yeah, I think it may be.
No. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Chet, is your couch getting more mileage than your car? If it is,
I hope not.
If it is, it's time for you to start saving with Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance.
Yeah, you know it, Bill. Allstate's pay-as-you-go auto insurance puts you in control. You only pay for the miles you drive with the same full coverage that a traditional policy offers. Pay-per-mile insurance gives customers greater control of their insurance costs. See how much you can save with pay-per-mile car insurance by calling your local agent. In Westchester, Pennsylvania, that is Dave Lavoie. Call Dave at 610-430-0700. Once again, 610-430-0700, and start to save more now that you are driving less.
Hey everybody, it's Willie Nile here, and you're listening to Chet and Bill on Philly Pressbox Radio. You lucky people.
All right. Hey, Chet, wanted to backtrack a little bit because we were talking Phillies, and you mentioned a few weeks ago about the Phillies' new radio team that's working with Scott Fransky. You had a chance to talk with Scott about that when you met up with him. It's about time, as the Phils are getting ready to hit the road shortly, that we'll be hearing many different voices on your radio besides Scott in L.A.
A lot of voices, Bill. Yeah, our viewers will recall that we had Phil's radio voice, Scott Fransky, on with us last month to talk about this year's Phillies, but it was a taped in advance interview, and I had to cut about 2 minutes for time's sake. Well, I'm going to play that 2 minutes right now because, yeah, the Phils are about to go on the road, and as you said, we're going to hear some new voices working with Scott this year, so here's what he had to say about it. Hey, Scott, last thing, you'll be working with 5 different color analysts this season, L.A. at most home games. And then on the road, the Phillies announced recently that there's going to be kind of a rotation of 4 guys, Stalker, Bourne, Durbin, Kratz. Is it difficult to get used to the tendencies and pacing of different analysts from one series to the next?
We're going to find out. I mean, And I honestly haven't even seen the schedule yet of when they're working, which games or whatever. So I don't know how many games in a row if they split up these road trips or how we're going to run it all. So obviously with the way the schedule was, with the lockout and everything, they were kind of waiting to craft some of that. They had, their theories in place, but I'm not sure they had it all set in stone until just recently. So, we did this a few years ago when we had 3 guys rotate on the road. It was kind of, for lack of a better word, it was kind of an open air audition between those 3 guys for the job. And it's kind of the same thing again, I guess. So I know one of the things I tried to do when we did it 3 years ago, and even, Larry and Kevin Franzen, who had done it on the road the last couple of years, they're very different people. And so the only thing I try to do is I try to always make sure that they feel involved, they feel heard, they have opportunities to share their wisdom. I think they both look at the game differently in some respects. So I know what Larry likes to talk about. I knew what Kevin likes to talk about. And I try to highlight and steer them into those areas where they can feel comfortable talking about what they want to talk about. And so I imagine I'll just try to get to know these guys. I know them all, at least on some level, from having worked with them when they were players with the Phillies. Obviously with Stocker, we've done plenty of innings together already. So that shouldn't be much of an issue at all. So I'll just try to get to know these guys and what they like to talk about and let them, let their personalities show, whatever that sounds like.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be interesting, I think, for us, the fans. Scott is the ultimate pro. You won't miss a beat with him, but I think we're going to find it hard getting used to different voices.
I loved his first answer, to that question. We're going to find out.
We're going to find out. Well, like I say, you're doing it with a couple guys, or 3, and now we're going to do it with 4. And I think, didn't Larry decide he was going to cut back even more after that decision was
he's
made,
only
right?
doing about 40 games this year, so 40 home games, mostly on the weekend. So we're going to see some of these other guys in half of the home games as well. So the schedule maker's got a job to do there. It's separating, how everybody's going to work.
Getting everybody to the right place at the right time. All right. Well, it'll be interesting because listening to Phillies baseball on the radio is also pretty fun too.
Oh, it is. I love it. I love when I'm in the car and, get to listen to Scott and LA and now 4 other guys too on occasion.
That's right. All right. Oh, hey, Chet, let's give a shout out to all the shows over at the Edge of Philly Sports Network this week. Always something going on. This time we're including draft coverage as well. This episode is being streamed live on Facebook, Twitter, and all the others. You can also check us on our YouTube page of Philly Pressbox Radio as well. Don't forget, Mondays, Broad Street Bully podcast talking Flyers. Tuesday, Full-Time Philly with Eric Williamson. That's a new show talking Union Soccer. How about that, Chet? Mm-hmm. Tom Kelly joins Matty B talking Philly sports on Tuesdays at 8:30. You have us early on Wednesday. Matty B and Chris Diebler joining Big Al this week as Joey's on vacation. Tonight at 9:30, they'll be live. Draft week coverage is coming up as always. Fighting Phil's finals. They're doing post-game shows almost every night or day. They did it this afternoon. And Saturday, the Patterson Avenue Fanatics. Breakfast for the boys. That's always great. 9 o'clock on Saturday mornings. Get your coffee and your donuts. So
hey, speaking of Matty B, he's been a beast. Matty B does his own show Tuesday night, and he's the guy who's been hosting the post-game Philly show after every single game so far. So, man, he's a workaholic.
He is working hard, and unfortunately, I can't stay up that late, so I haven't been able to see the end of the game because I get up too early. But
I know.
Hey, tell us about the draft, Chet. A lot of coverage going on. You are going to be part of it. I'll probably be a little part of it from a distance.
Yeah, it's a busy month for NFL fans and Eagles fans, Bill. The rest of the gang at Edge of Philly Sports have big plans for our viewers and listeners. Great guests like Domo that we had last week and a couple of big ones coming up that I'll tell you about in a little bit. Plus, we put out articles every day on some of the draft prospects. And then, we're going to do some live on remote shows draft week. It all starts Thursday night when NFL round 1 draft happens. We coverage at the Delco Cup on Baltimore Pike in Springfield. So come out and say hello to the Edge of Philly guys there. Then the following night, the second night of the draft, I'm going to be there at Marty, what is it, McGurk's, Bill? McGee's? I can never remember. And
we got to get that. We got to get that logo out of there.
I know it's Marty McGee's, but I'm going to be there. I'll find it. It's 1110 Lincoln Avenue in Prospect Park. I'm going to be there on Friday night, the 29th, and then we wrap it up on the Saturday afternoon at the Red Lantern in Glenolden. Love that place. Been there a few times. So wall-to-wall coverage all this month, and then live shows the 28th, 29th, and 30th. Come out and say hello to us.
Yeah, and you mentioned the articles, Chet. There's they're posted on our Philly Pressbox Radio Facebook page. They're getting posted every day, and we're putting them up there. So you can probably see there's probably been 20 of them already posted of different guys that some of us thought were going to be potential Eagles or high draft picks or local guys. We did some Penn State guys. And where they're going to fall in the draft. So check that out. Good stuff. Like us, follow
Bill,
us.
I got some real good news.
Go.
We only have 30 seconds to talk about the Flyers.
Well, I'll tell you what, we might need more than 30 seconds tonight, Chet, because although the Flyers haven't given us a whole lot to talk about on the ice, they did a great job. The organization did with Lou Nolan the other night, the 50th anniversary with the club, Eric Lindros, Bernie Perrant, Bob Kelly, all there to present Lou with gifts, special number 50 jerseys for the pregame. 50-year patches were worn on the game jerseys. Real nice job by the Flyers, and congrats to our friend Lou Nolan.
Yeah, very nicely done on the part of the organization. Lou was very, very appreciative, of course, and as we all know, there's not a nicer guy in the business. So again, congratulations to Lou Nolan. And Bill, just one final question. Did the Flyers really lose a game 9-2 last night?
I think it was like 3, wasn't it? But yes, they gave up 9, and Ovechkin only had the first one. He didn't have any of the other 8. So, and it is 8:00. They're on the ice tonight against the Rangers back at the Wells Fargo Center.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to miss it.
So, yeah. All right. Great guests tonight at Bob Brookover and Keith Pompey. Who's coming to Philly Pressbox Radio next week, Jet?
Well, Bill, we got a couple of great ones for you again next week. We will talk Phillies baseball with the co-host of the High Hopes podcast. That is our friend Jack Fritz. I love this guy. He's so knowledgeable about all things Phillies, and he's going to join us for the first time in quite a while again next week. And Bill, you're going to like this one. Our other guest next week, we will talk about an important upcoming fundraising event for the Women Against Abuse organization that this guy happens to be involved with. And he's also a guy who's going to talk a lot of Eagles with us and pro football talk in general, because we are going to be joined by none other than Troy Vincent, an all-time great Eagles cornerback who currently has a high-profile job with the NFL. Troy Vincent joining us next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very good. Very good. All right. Love it. All right, Chet, let's give another quick break and thank our friends at the PPCC 118 Raz Room. They post great sports memorabilia on their Facebook page so people can take a chance of winning something they may not be able to afford or have access to. All items come with certificates of authenticity. They continue to run out great autographed memorabilia from all the Philly teams and more. They have small line Razes with greater chances of winning. Check out their Facebook page. Like it or follow it. It's PPCC 118 Raz Room. That's right, PPCC 118 Raz Room on Facebook. So, Mr. Chesko, parting shot or a random Chet or just anything from you today?
Couple of deaths, Bill, in the sports world over the last few days. We lost former Penn State and NFL running back Gary Brown a few days ago. Brown played 3 years at PSU, and then he had an 8-year NFL career with the old Houston Oilers, plus the Chargers and Giants. He also did some coaching in the pros and in college, most recently with the Wisconsin Badgers, but he had various health issues over the past several months, including cancer. And he left us. He was just 52 years old. Of course, we also lost quarterback Dwayne Haskins. the Ohio State star from a few years back. He was a high draft pick by the then Washington Redskins out of OSU, and he was a backup with the Steelers last season. Well, he was killed Saturday morning when struck by a truck on a Florida highway. The specifics of that whole situation still not exactly clear. Haskins was just 24. His pro career wasn't going the way people would have hoped or expected, of course, but still, you hate to see something like that. Way, way too young, Bill.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Chet, if you've ever been down to South Florida, I-595 is a massive road down by Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. Why anyone short of being broken down would be walking on that road, especially at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, is just beyond me. There'd be no reason. There's nothing around there to do.
Yeah.
To walk across that highway, and it's a sad thing. And on Gary Brown, Chet, one thing may not know, he was the running back coach for some guy named number 22, that with a star on his helmet.
Emmett.
Yeah, he was the Cowboys running back coach for quite a while, and Emmett was one of his pupils. So
yeah, I saw Jerry Jones did make some comments about the loss of Gary Brown. So rest in peace.
All right. You ready to wrap it up?
Wrap it up, Bill.
Okay. Let's thank tonight's special guest, Bob Brookover and Keith Pompey. Our sponsors, the Irish Rover Station House, Bob Sullivan's LikeYourAge.com, PPCC 118 Raz Room, and Dave LeBoy of Allstate Insurance in Westchester. For Jim Chechesko, this is Bill Furman. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll join Philly Pressbox Radio next Wednesday, April the 20th at 7 p.m. Well, we're going to have great guests. Woo! I'm pretty fired up about that. You can listen on our Facebook page. You can listen through our website, phillypressboxradio.com, blogtalkradio.com/phillypressboxradio, and all the podcasts, Apple, iHeart, and all those others. High hopes, Philadelphia sports fans. Let's go Sixers in the playoffs come this weekend.